What if I told you that the NBA MVP race this season might not be as clear as the voting sheet makes it look? Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has just won his second consecutive MVP award. And on paper, that sounds simple, clean, decisive. Case closed, right? But before we congratulate him and move on, we have to ask a question that a lot of fans are thinking, but not everyone is saying out loud. Was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander really the best player in the league this season? Because when you actually slow down and look at what happened, this story gets a lot more complicated. At first glance, the voting results make it look like this was a no-brainer. Shai dominated the narrative. The Thunder had the best record in the league. He put up huge numbers, and the media momentum behind him was undeniable. But the moment we zoom out, we start to see another side of this conversation, and that's where Nikola Jokic enters the picture. Because Jokic didn't just have an amazing season, he had one of the most statistically unique seasons we've ever seen in NBA history. So let's slow it down and actually break it apart. Nikola Jokic averaged a triple-double this season. Think about that for a second. A center averaging a triple-double. And not just that, he led the entire league in both rebounds and assists. Let that sink in. When was the last time you saw a player control the game in every possible direction like that? He becomes only the third player in NBA history to average a triple-double over a full season. And that raises a real question. If a player is doing something that only two other legends in history have ever done, how is that not automatically the best season in the league? How do you even compare that level of all-around dominance? Is scoring enough to outweigh that kind of impact on rebounds, playmaking, and overall control of the game? Or are we underrating what Jokic is actually doing because it doesn't always show up in highlight reels? Now, to be clear, this is not a conversation about whether Shai had a great season, because he absolutely did. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the Oklahoma City Thunder to the best record in the entire league. That matters, winning matters, and individually, he wasn't just part of the success, he was the engine. He also finished as the second best scorer in the entire NBA. That's elite company, that's MVP level production on most seasons in league history. But here's where things get interesting. Even with that dominance, some statistical comparisons suggest that Shai's season actually dipped in certain categories compared to his previous year. Which leads to another uncomfortable question. Now, how do you win a second straight MVP while in some areas statistically performing worse than the season before? Is it because the team's success was overwhelming? Is it narrative fatigue around other candidates? Or is it simply that this year voters valued different things more than pure individual statistical dominance? This is where the MVP conversation always gets messy, because the award is supposed to go to the most valuable player. But what does that actually mean? Is it the best stats, the best team record, the most unstoppable individual force, or the player most essential to winning? Because depending on how you answer that question, the entire race changes. And this isn't the first time this debate has come up. Nikola Jokic has now won 3 of the last 6 MVP awards. And here's the even more striking part. In the 3 seasons where he didn't win, he still finished second each time. Think about how insane that level of consistency is. 6 straight seasons of being either the best or second best player in the entire league according to MVP voting. That kind of dominance doesn't happen by accident. It usually defines eras. And that's why some fans argue that Jokic is quietly building one of the most overlooked MVP stretches in NBA history. Because even when he doesn't win, he is always right there. One of the most debated MVP races in recent memory came back in 2023. That year, Joel Embiid won the award. But many fans and analysts believe that Nikola Jokic's level of play was strong enough to potentially make him the first player in modern NBA history to win 3 consecutive MVPs. Instead, the vote went another direction. And ever since then, that season has been a reference point in every MVP debate involving Jokic, because it raised a question that still hasn't fully gone away. Does the league or voters avoid giving certain players too many MVPs in a row? Or is it just natural variation in different seasons and narratives? There's no easy answer, but the conversation continues. Let's go back to the most important statistical line in this entire discussion. Jokic this season, 27.7 points per game, 12.9 rebounds per game, 10.7 assists per game. That average, while leading the league in rebounds and assists per game, is not normal. That's not just MVP level. That's historically rare production. So the question becomes, when a player is leading the league in rebounds and assists while averaging a triple-double, how do you evaluate their value against someone leading a 60-plus win team? What weighs more, raw statistical dominance or team dominance with elite scoring? Now, this is where the debate becomes more controversial. Some fans point out that Shai's style of play, especially his ability to get to the free throw line, gives him a steady scoring advantage that is sometimes difficult to match. Others argue that drawing fouls is a skill in itself and part of modern basketball efficiency. So the real question is, are we watching elite skill, or are we reacting emotionally to different play styles? And when MVP voters make their decision, how much of it is based on basketball? And how much is based on perception? Because perception matters a lot. Another factor that always gets brought up in MVP debates is timing. When a team peaks, when storylines build, and when the season narrative locks in. Some fans even argue that momentum shifts late in the season can influence perception more than people realize. And in this case, one of the biggest talking points was the Thunder finishing with the best record in the league. That kind of success often becomes the final argument that pushes a player over the edge in MVP voting. But it also raises another question. If the award is decided before the playoffs, why does postseason timing or media cycles still feel like it matters in shaping the narrative? So after all of this, we come back to the original question. Was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander truly the best player in the league this season? Or was Nikola Jokic's historic all-around production overshadowed by team success, narrative timing, and voter interpretation of value? Because depending on how you define MVP, you can honestly justify either side. And maybe that's the real truth of the modern NBA. There isn't one answer anymore. There are just arguments. Strong ones, backed by stats, backed by wins, backed by history. One thing is certain, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an elite player, and winning back-to-back MVPs is something very few players in NBA history have ever done. But at the same time, Nikola Jokic continues to build, one of the most statistically dominant and consistent MVP cases the league has ever seen. And that leaves us with a league-wide debate that isn't going away anytime soon. Are we rewarding the best player or the best story of the season? And depending on who you ask, the answer might be very different. And that's where the debate stands. No matter which side you're on, whether you believe Shai deserved the MVP or you think Jokic was overlooked again. This is exactly what makes basketball conversations so interesting. There isn't always a clear answer, just stronger and weaker arguments depending on how you weigh the numbers, the wins, and the impact. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. This is Ball Fake, and we'll keep bringing you straight-up basketball debates, stats, and stories that go beyond the headlines.